This podcast is part of the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Podcast Network. Go to michigansportsandentertainment.com for more great podcasts.
This is Mike.
And this is Beck.
And Nina.
And we are Brew Crime. So this episode, we're going to do something kind of opposite of last time. Last time it was kids that kill, so this time it's parents that kill. Mm-hmm. You ready to give a hint of what your story's going to be about, Beck?
Yeah, sure. A horrible murder is committed. The killer calmly cleaned up and then disappeared for 18 years. This is a story I'm calling You Can Run, But You Can't Hide. The List Family Murders. So the beer that I chose for this one is called Naughty Hildegard from Driftwood Brewery. And I chose this one because the criminal in my case was a very religious man. And because you have to see the design of the can to get part of the reason I chose it. But I'll mention it when it's mentioned in the story. But yeah, you can go to our website to see. It's a really beautiful can, actually.
Yeah, it is. Lots of color.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an extra special bitter. It says on the website, showcasing mosaic hops and a delicate blend of malts. This extra special bitter was brewed with the very finest ingredients available. Naughty Hildegard ESB supports big flavors of guava, mango, and citrus to deliver a juicy hop malt balance that is deceptively easy to drink. A Pacific Northwest jam on a UK classic. And at 6.5% alcohol.
Sounds delicious.
I don't have one.
It's got kind of a, what would you say that is for color? More copper?
Yeah, I don't know.
Kind of a beigeish head or something. Quite floral in the nose. There's definitely a lot of fruit going on. Bit of mango. I'm not sure what guava smells like or tastes like, so I'll just assume that's the guava. Hey, gotta tell the truth.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite herbal. Like it's not there is bitterness there, but it's not a lot of bitterness. I think it's more like some resiny and citrus pith. But there's guava and mango. Well, I know the mango for sure. Definitely got some graininess.
I'm kind of relieved that it's not super bitter. I like it. I mean, I love fruity beers. So
yeah.
I wouldn't say this is a fruit beer by any means, but I do like the citrusy.
Yeah, it's definitely got the citrus thing going on. That's nice. It's been a while since I've had this beer, actually.
Have I ever picked a beer that you're like, I haven't had this?
No, I don't think so. But I've had this just after a while, though, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to find a beer that I haven't tried, really, unless it's brand spanking new.
Something to aim for, then.
Yes, exactly.
One of these days we'll get them.
Mm-hmm.
It'll happen sometime. Or bring beer that doesn't get sold here, and there's a chance. All right.
Mm-hmm. Here we go. So, John Emil List was born in Bay City, Michigan, September 17th, 1925. He was the only child of John Frederick List and Alma Maria Barbara Florence Hubinger.
That is
That's a
quite
mouthful.
the name.
That's the exact note that I have written here. I've, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 names.
Yeah.
Might be a little over the top, but whatever.
Some people are just extra.
Mm-hmm. Both John and his father were devout Lutherans and Sunday school teachers. In 1943, John joined the Army. He served as a lab technician in the infantry during World War II. He was discharged in 1946 and enrolled at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. John earned his bachelor's in business administration and master's in accounting.
Smart guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely a smart guy then, yeah.
In November of 1950, the Korean War was escalating and John was recalled to active military service. While in Fort Eustis, Virginia, he met Helen Morris Taylor. She lived nearby with her daughter, Brenda. Her husband had been killed in action during the Korean War. John and Helen got married just a year later on December 1st, 1951. John moved to California with his new family and served as an Army accountant. In 1952, once his second tour was completed, John went to work for an accounting firm in Detroit. From there, he moved on to Kalamazoo, and that sounds funny, but it's a fact. And became an audit supervisor at a paper company. It reminds me of The Office. And this guy, John, is such a Dwight. Like, everything just so. And anyway, John and Helen's 3 kids were born in Kalamazoo. John had risen to general supervisor of the accounting department by 1959. Unfortunately, things weren't going so well for John's wife, Helen. She was an alcoholic and was becoming more and more unstable. Helen's daughter, Brenda, got married in 1960 and left the house. When John got a job offer with Xerox, he decided to move the rest of the family to Rochester, New York. He eventually moved up to be the director of accounting services. In 1965, John received a job offer to become vice president and comptroller at a Jersey City, New Jersey bank, so it was time to move again.
Oh, fun. I hate moving.
We never moved when I was a kid.
We
No.
moved all the time.
Yeah.
Moved a couple times, but I only remember one of them because I was really young on some of the other ones.
I guess with him being in the Army, though, that's what you sign up for, right?
Oh, hell yeah.
Reality.
Or depending, like in Canada, the RCMP, same thing. You usually move around, too. So it depends on your job.
Yeah. So this time the family moved into Breeze Knoll and with John's mother. It was a 19-room Victorian mansion in Westfield.
Nice.
Crazy.
No big deal, right?
Sign me up for that.
19 bedrooms. Like, why is that even a thing?
I just need a maid if I...
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Big of a
All
place.
the dust and all that.
Yeah.
Hell
What's
no.
that, Molly maid or something?
Yeah, like how many of the rooms are they actually using versus is it just like a solid rule, don't go in there so we don't have to clean it?
Yeah, you don't know there's dust in there if you don't open the door.
Yeah.
Someone else's problem.
Yeah, exactly.
The house also had marble fireplaces and a Tiffany skylight.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So the Tiffany skylight was part of the tie-in for the design of the can because it has like this stained glass
Yeah,
art
definitely
on the
stained
can.
glass.
In the same style
It actually-
of a Tiffany skylight.
I noticed on the side it actually looks kind of like an eye,
Yeah.
although kind of tall.
I see it.
Oh dear.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so things were going well for the family at this point. The kids did well in school, and they were all involved in extracurricular activities. And John was working and taught at the local Sunday school. And I couldn't find any information about what Helen was up to, likely because she'd fulfilled her duty by being a wife and mother, so no one cared what she was doing because it was 1960s small town.
Yep.
And
She was busy
that's how
cleaning 19 freaking bedrooms of what
Yes.
she was doing.
That's
And
right.
then fitting in probably cooking and...
Yeah.
And she's the alcoholic too?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
At least she had booze.
Yeah.
I'll admit that I do my
thirsty
best...
work.
Yeah, I do my best cleaning while drinking, so... 19 rooms would make me an alcoholic, I think.
you just have to find where you left your booze, though. What
You
room
leave
is
it?
it in? Just have a bottle
Comes
per
with
room.
I
I'm gonna
can't
go to the
imagine a
vodka
house that
room.
big.
A
It's
cooler
just
on
crazy.
wheels.
There's an IV drip.
No. Oh.
I'm not... what was that guy from Simpsons? The Duff beer. He won the whole tanker of Duff beer, and he wanted it tapped to his veins. Was it Barney?
Barney?
Barney, yeah.
Yeah.
Not Barney.
Yeah. Ugh. Yes, unfortunately, the good times didn't last forever. In 1971, John lost his job at the bank, and he started to worry that the family might have to go on welfare. So instead of talking to his family about what was going on, he spent his days at the Westfield train station reading the newspaper, and then he would return home as if he'd just completed a full day of work.
How,
Fun.
Yeah. And unbeknownst to John's mother, Alma, she was now paying the mortgage. So he was skimming what he needed to cover the mortgage from his mother's bank account.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. On top of his financial woes, John was very worried for his family's eternal souls. They had become less and less interested in the church, and his eldest daughter even expressed serious interest in becoming an actress.
Oh, my God.
The horror! She was 16, so I mean, A, how serious are her career goals at 16? And B, who cares if she wants to be an actress? Let her be an actress.
Yeah.
If that's what's going to make her happy. What's the damn problem?
Yeah.
But to John, there was only one solution. On November 9, 1971, John waited for his kids to leave for school before shooting his wife Helen in the back of the head. He then proceeded up to the third floor where his mother Alma had a private apartment, and he shot her above the right eye.
What did she do?
None of them did anything.
I know, but he thinks that the kids did something. But what
Yeah.
did the mother do? Like,
It gets to
okay.
why he
What
did
the
it.
fuck?
So when his daughter Patricia, who was 16 at the time, and youngest son Frederick, 13, arrived home from school, he shot each of them in the back of the head. He then made some lunch before driving into town to close his and Alma's bank accounts. From there, he went to watch his eldest son, John Jr., who was 15 at the time, play soccer. He drove John Jr. home, but when he tried to shoot him like he had shot the other two children, he fought back. John repeatedly shot him in the chest and face even after he had fallen. He wanted to be absolutely sure that he was dead.
Yikes.
John then put each of the bodies on a sleeping bag and dragged them into the ballroom one by one. He left his mother's body in her third-floor apartment. According to a letter that he left for his pastor, he killed his family to save their souls. There was too much evil in this world. He finished writing the letter, cleaned each crime scene, and meticulously cut himself out of every family photo in the house.
Wow.
Not weird at all.
No, not at all.
No.
How do you have the time for that?
I mean, they were a fairly reclusive family, so it's not like anyone was going to pop by.
Yeah,
They
probably not a
weren't
lot of
very
houses
social.
nearby.
Yeah. He also sent notes to his kids' school and part-time jobs to say that the whole family would be out of town for a while to care for Helen's ailing mother in North Carolina. He even remembered to stop the newspaper and milk deliveries. He stayed in the house that night, and in the morning he calmly tuned the radio to a religious station and left.
Wow.
Yeah. Neighbors slowly noticed that all of the lights were on. Day or night, the lights were on. They thought it was odd, but not especially noteworthy until the lights slowly started to burn out. Then they called the police, but by then it had been nearly a month.
Holy shit.
I never understood that. Like, there's children that you're not seeing. Like,
Yeah.
and if it's your neighbors, like, I'd be curious, being like, where's little Johnny boy, or like, where,
And
Yeah.
this is before kids played on tablets and probably not great TV yet, I'm guessing, at this time. So kids are going to be out playing.
But I'm thinking also why, like, taking them out of school for such a long period of time, right? Like, just no one's questioning it, not doing anything about it. That's strange to me that it would go an entire month.
Yeah. And I can understand that he sent the letter saying that they'd be out of town, but like you said, the kid's missing that much school.
Well, also,
seems odd.
if
Yeah.
his mum was living in the house too, like, why not leave the kids with her and whatever, right? But
Yeah, I mean, at 16, like 13 to 16, they're old enough to manage to get to school. A massive manhunt was launched. Police spent uncountable hours following hundreds of leads. They were swimming upstream, though. All reliable photos had been cut up. The family car was found at JFK Airport in New York City. There was no evidence that John had actually boarded a flight, though, so it was just another dead end.
So they just didn't have a single picture of him because he cut it out?
Yeah, he'd cut, like, all of the photos of him were gone.
And that's impressive because back then there would have been lots of photos probably. It's not digital, so you'd have photo books after photo books probably.
But, like, why not just burn all the pictures? Like, why cut yourself out? Like,
I don't know if there would have been that many photos, because you would have had to go and get them developed, and it was more expensive, and
yeah,
I don't
but
know.
People used to, you wouldn't take as many pictures as you do with a digital camera now, but you'd still, every time you did something as a family, people would usually take pictures and get them developed, and it'd be a photo book for this trip or a photo book for that special event. They're very religious, so when a child was, I don't even know what age that is, like, depending, it could be confirmed or something if they're Catholic, I think it is, but
baptized?
Yeah, I'm not sure how the
Baptisms.
Lutheran...
I have no idea. I
do
barely remember what the Catholics do
Yeah.
anymore because, it's been a long time.
Yeah, on May 21st, 1989, this horrible crime was covered on America's Most Wanted. Totally watched
Great show.
that.
Great show.
Yeah. Forensic artist Frank Bender had made an age-enhanced clay bust of John so people would have a better idea of what he looked like at the time that the show aired. Frank considered things like how much time had passed, genetics, how the stress of what John had done and what he was hiding would show on his face.
That's cool.
He even considered what fashion choices he would make based on his personality. So the bust bears a striking resemblance to him. Like,
Nice.
It's crazy. He even chose the same glasses. Like, when they actually found John, he was wearing
Crazy.
the same glasses as this
Wow.
guy had chosen for
That's
the bust.
impressive.
Yeah. So there'll be pictures of the bust and of John at the time of capture on the website. And you can see how...
Bust.
I knew someone was going to... That's what it's called. I don't know what to call it. So it only took 2 weeks to locate John once the show aired. He was in Virginia. The FBI soon discovered how John left the area and what he had been doing for the last 18 years. John had indeed not caught a flight. He had actually left his car there, but then went and boarded a train to Michigan and then on to Colorado. He was no longer John List. He was Robert Peter Clark, but everyone called him Bob. He settled in Denver in 1972 and started another accounting job. He was the comptroller of a paper box manufacturer outside of Denver from 1979 to 1986. He ran the carpool of the Lutheran church that he attended, and at a religious gathering he met Dolores Miller. She was an Army PX clerk, and they married in 1985 and moved to Midlothian, Virginia in 1988, where Bob Clark got another job as an accountant, of course. He was arrested June 1st, 1989, after a Denver neighbor saw the America's Most Wanted broadcast and alerted the police. It's always the neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be nice to your neighbor.
Yeah. It would be another 8.5 months, as well as a mountain of evidence against him before he would finally confess his true identity. At the trial, John List testified that on top of the stressors that authorities already knew he was dealing with, he was also dealing with his wife's rampant alcoholism and her untreated tertiary syphilis.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Her what?
She had syphilis.
What the fuck is syphilis?
STI.
Okay.
So she was probably sleeping around then.
No,
No.
she'd gotten syphilis from her first husband who was sleeping around.
Ah, okay.
According to John, his wife had pressured him to marry her by claiming that she was pregnant, which is why they got married so quickly. And she also insisted that they get married in Maryland because they do not require a blood test to get a marriage license.
Jesus.
Right? A blood test to get a marriage license?
Right?
Yeah.
I've
What the
never
shit?
heard of that. Like,
Well, actually, in Mexico, it's similar.
that's weird.
Yeah.
I've never heard of
Why?
that.
So, what is the logic behind that?
I have no idea.
I think in Mexico, it's to make sure that cousins aren't marrying, so maybe it's that. I'm not even
Yeah,
kidding.
because in the States, no family members marry each other.
Never.
No. Incest isn't a thing. It's fine.
Ding, 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 ding.
Oh, God. Yeah, so I'd never heard of that and didn't really know why it was like that. I got my marriage license at London Drugs. Like,
Actually, I think that's where we got ours,
yeah,
too.
super easy.
But,
Yeah.
so she didn't want to get her blood tested because syphilis is in the blood? No.
Well, they'd have been able to tell.
Yeah.
And with a blood test, you can tell if you're pregnant or not.
Ah.
So both. So Helen's health grew worse and worse, but she didn't mention it to John or even to her doctor until 1969. That was 18 years after they were married.
Jeez.
According to John, Helen's excessive alcohol consumption and her disease had, quote, transformed her from an attractive young woman to an unkempt and paranoid recluse.
Okay.
Way to stick by
Okay.
your wife.
Yeah.
Apparently, she frequently and sometimes publicly compared John's sexual prowess to her ex-husband, and not in a favorable manner. Okay, that's just horrible, though.
Yeah.
I like what he's picking, though, for excuses of why he murdered
Right?
his entire family, her and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So a psychiatrist testified that John had obsessive-compulsive personality disorder. For John, there was only 2 options: accept welfare or kill all of his family so their souls could go to heaven. And welfare was not an option because it would bring ridicule to his family and go against everything that his father had taught him about caring for a family.
Right, so instead
Jesus
of doing
Christ.
that, he cared for his family by just executing them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So basically nothing was his fault, and I'm sure in his mind nothing ever was his fault. Nothing
I'm
that
sure.
happened in his life was ever his fault.
But if
So-
it wasn't his fault, why didn't you just, like, this will kind of tie into my story when I get into it later, just be like, yeah, this is what happened, it's not my fault, I had to do it because of, what you just listed, and I had to kill them, and end of story. Why go hide and all of that?
Exactly. If you really felt like it wasn't your fault, why are you running?
Yep.
So thankfully the judge and jury strongly disagreed with him, and on April 12th, 1990, they convicted him of 5 counts of first-degree murder. At the sentencing hearing, John said, quote, "I feel that because of my mental state at the time, I was unaccountable for what happened. I ask all affected by this for their forgiveness, understanding, and prayer." You fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
This guy killed his wife and children to protect them against the public ridicule that might happen from them going on welfare, and now he's blatantly saying that he doesn't feel accountable and people should forgive him?
Fuck him.
Was he dropped as a kid on the head?
I don't know.
And also, like, why were those his only 2 options, too? I mean, if you tell your wife, maybe she can get a job.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe if your kids are older, they can also try to contribute. Maybe don't live in a 19-bedroom fucking home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sell
Like-
that Tiffany skylight. Bet you could live off that for a couple years.
Probably.
Anyways.
Rent
Turn
out
the
some
lights
rooms.
off.
Yeah.
Turn the lights off.
Turn
Like,
the lights off.
save on the electricity bill. Shit's expensive.
Yeah.
Not
Rent
once
out
you
the
leave.
rooms.
But I just feel like there was...
A million other fucking options.
Yeah. Kill yourself before you kill your family.
Oh,
Fuck.
I have the answer for that, too. So, the judge was having none of his crap and gave John the maximum sentence, 5 consecutive terms of life imprisonment. John's appeals were unsuccessful, and in 2002, during an interview by Connie Chung, John finally expressed some sort of remorse. Quote, "I wish I'd never done what I did." Connie asked John why he had not just taken his own life, and he replied that suicide would have permanently barred him from heaven,
Yep.
where he hoped to be reunited with his family.
I fucking hate people like that. It's like, no, you just fucking murdered your whole family.
Yeah.
If you believe in a hell, you're going there.
Yeah.
If it's a thing.
I'll tell you how else he could have been with his family. Don't kill them all.
Yeah.
Like, just don't kill them all.
I mean, that logic is
you-
very sound to me, but really, come on.
But none of us are religious, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, John died of pneumonia-related complications March 21st, 2008. when
Oh,
he's
darn.
82.
Wow.
So that's John List and his poor family.
Yep. Fuck.
It's also
What
kind
a
of crazy that
piece
he
of shit.
went to his kid's soccer match and then drove him back. He should have just been a badass and, like, walked up to the soccer field and, like, pop, pop.
No.
No, because then he'd get caught and he couldn't
Yeah.
live for 18 years.
But he didn't do anything
Yeah.
wrong. It's fine. It's logic. Welfare or murder.
No,
Yeah.
he's a coward. He had to do it at
Oh, yeah, of
home
course he's a
where no
coward.
one would see him.
And, like, one at a time, too,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
No one could fight back that way.
No.
So yeah, he's a piece of human garbage. And
Almost everyone we talk about is a piece of human garbage, though, so
yeah.
there is that.
But I definitely recommend the Forensic Files episode.
I'll have to watch
Do you know
that.
which one it is? What season? What episode?
No, but I'll look it up and we'll put it on the website. And the America's Most Wanted episode's good too. Yeah, so
All right.
that is John List. Piece
Cool.
of shit.
Yeah, no shit.
So for the Parents That Kill episode, I picked Andrea Yates. Long story short, she killed all 5 of her children by drowning them. And I'll get into it, why, and all the things. And Mike's going to talk a little bit about the beer because that's more his thing.
All right, so the beer you picked was the Broken Dreams. It's a breakfast stout from Siren Craft Brew out of the UK. I'm not even going to try to say the name of the town it's in. I think Beck might.
Mm-hmm. It's Finchampstead, Berkshire.
Sure.
Yeah, say that one 3 times fast. So it says, Broken Dream is deep and complex. She lurks in your imagination. She binds smoke and coffee aromas with chocolate, milk, and oats to create something thick, velvety, and slick. A 6.5% breakfast stout with a gentle touch of smoke, coffee, and chocolate. And according to this, the award this beer has won is the Camera Supreme Champion Beer of Britain. And Camera is the Campaign for Real Ale. So that's
It sounds amazing.
Pretty good award.
Excited.
Okay, let's give it a go.
It sounds like it's going to be really dark and not Nina's favorite.
And sounds like Beck is right.
It is like tar. It is tar black.
So, I would describe this color as dark. With a, how do you say it? With some dark head also.
It's very, very black color with a nice brown, like chocolatey head. I can just swirling the beer. I can smell the coffee.
Yeah,
tons of coffee, some roasted malts, chocolate.
Kind of
It
smells.
sounds like I'll be buying this later.
They're on sale. They're only $5.
It's got a really,
$4.99.
really nice aroma. Yeah, lots of roasted malts in there. A little bit of burnt coffee, chocolate. It is kind of creamy.
Mm-hmm. I love that smooth like texture on your tongue that some dark beers have.
Well, it does have lactose in it. It is a milk stout.
Yeah, I love
So that's going to give you that milk sugar.
And it's a beer that Mike hasn't had before.
Yeah.
So
Nina won, I guess.
again,
And not only that, it's actually a really good beer. I like it.
sure.
It's got everything that I'd want in a breakfast stout.
Yeah.
Except that, it's funny because most breakfast stouts seem to be a really high ABV. This is only 6.5%. So it's not quite as weird to have for
Can I ask a
breakfast, I
stupid
guess.
question? Is it called a breakfast stout because you're supposed to have it for breakfast?
Not
It's
for breakfast.
You can.
With
You
your
could.
You could.
The only thing stopping you is yourself, right? Like,
Yeah.
I
but is
mean,
that
it's your
why?
own limitation.
No, it's got oats, so oatmeal. It's got coffee, so there's your coffee. It's got the lactose, so you put a little bit of cream in your coffee, right?
Okay.
So it's it's basically it's breakfast in a bottle.
Just have like a banana with it to get the fruit content, right?
No, why not, right?
Sure.
Well balanced.
Just a slice of bacon.
Well, now everything's better with bacon.
Like, totally.
Can't go wrong. Okay, so let's get into who Andrea Yates is. So full name is Andrea Pia Yates. She was born on July 2nd, 1964 in Hallsville, Texas. She was the youngest of 5 children.
Did you say Hellsville?
Hallsville. Like
Okay.
Halls the candy and then Ville like
Okay.
Ville.
Hallsville, yeah.
Hallsville. Yeah, the youngest of 5 children. She suffered from bulimia during her teenage years. She also suffered from depression and at 17 actually talked about suicide with some of her friends. She graduated from Milby High School in 1982. She was a class valedictorian, captain of the swim team, and an officer in the National Honor Society.
Wow.
Do you guys know what that is? What is like,
The National Honor Society?
No idea.
but like what, an officer, what is that?
The Honor Society is for
Smart people.
like straight A students, and
that's
I
why I
guess
don't know
if you're
about
an
it.
officer in it, maybe you.
The smartest of the smartest people?
Or you're part of like some sort of executive committee or something. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. Speculation.
Just sounds like someone I wouldn't want to be friends with.
Oh,
We could have Googled it, I guess, but
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's better to banter. Okay, so Yates completed a 2-year pre-nursing program at the University of Houston and graduated from the University of Texas School of Nursing. From 1986 until 1994, she worked as a registered nurse at the University of Texas MD Anderson Cancer Center. In the summer of 1989, she met Rusty Yates, 2 months her junior, at the Sunscape Apartments in Houston. They soon moved in together and were married on April 17th, 1993.
Rusty's a horrible name. I'm sorry if your name is Rusty, but change it.
But it's a nickname. It's not like Russell's better.
Isn't it?
I don't know. I kind of love Rusty Yates.
To each their own, then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Rusty and Andrea announced that they would seek to have as many babies as nature allowed.
Oh, my.
Their first child, Noah, was born in February of 1994. He was 7, followed by John, who's 5, Paul, 3, Luke, 2, and Mary, 6 months old.
Oh
Jesus.
God.
They're very religious.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Is there an ark in there somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was working on it.
That's their neighbor.
No, that's their first
No,
child.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay. Okay. Following the birth of her 4th child, Luke, Yates became severely depressed. On June 16th, 1999, Rusty found her shaking and chewing her fingers. The very next day, she attempted to commit suicide by overdosing on pills.
Oh, shit.
She was admitted to the hospital and prescribed antidepressants. Soon after her release, she begged Rusty to let her die as she held a knife up to her neck. Once again, she was hospitalized and given a cocktail of medication, including Hildegard, an antipsychotic drug. Her condition improved immediately, and she was prescribed it on her release. So she appeared to be temporarily stabilized. In July 1999, Yates suffered a nervous breakdown, which resulted in 2 more suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations that same summer. She was diagnosed with postpartum psychosis.
That sucks.
Yeah, that's really rough.
Yeah, it's not good.
That's a real thing, and you can't do much about it.
And it's so, it's such an unspoken, I don't know what word to use.
Topic?
Affliction? Yeah,
Affliction?
topic.
Yep. Yates' first psychiatrist, Dr. Eileen Starbranch, testified that she urged her and Rusty not to have any more children, as it would guarantee future psychotic depression. Obviously, they didn't listen.
Yeah, no,
They
of course
Why would you listen?
not.
Yeah, what do doctors know, right?
Nothing.
Nothing.
They conceived their 5th and final child, Mary, approximately 7 weeks after her discharge. She had to stop taking Haldol while she was pregnant with Mary, of course.
Yep.
Gave birth to Mary November 30th in 2000. Since Yates had stopped taking the medication, she started mutilating herself and reading the Bible religiously. See what I get? Yeah, we're good. So much to the point that she just stopped feeding Mary because Bible time and completely started neglecting her child. She became so incapacitated that she required hospitalization again.
I'd say so. Sounds like she was highlighting the passages.
I don't really understand why, like, child services or anything hasn't been... Okay, yeah, and you're signaling me to hold my horses.
Slow your horses. Mm-hmm. So as I mentioned, she became so incapacitated that she required hospitalization again. On April 1st, 2001, she came under the care of Dr. Mohammed Saeed. She was treated and released on May 3rd, 2001. She degenerated back into a near catatonic state and filled the bathtub in the middle of the day. She would later confess to police that she had planned to drown the children that day, but had decided against doing it. She was hospitalized the next day after a scheduled doctor's visit. Her psychiatrist determined she was probably suicidal and had filled the tub to drown herself. She continued under Dr. Saeed's care until June 20th, 2001. When Rusty left for work, leaving her alone to watch the children against Dr. Saeed's instructions to supervise her around the clock, his mother, Dora Yates, had been scheduled by him to arrive an hour later to take over for her. In the space of that hour is when she drowned all 5 of her children.
Oh my God.
One of the things that Rusty Yates had said, he was trying to help her gain her independence. So in the morning, he would give her 1 hour unsupervised with the children, and he would also give her 1 hour in the evening where he would just leave the house and run an errand or whatever. Yeah, didn't...
Bad move, unfortunately.
I mean...
Too soon.
I also think if it's against specific instructions that she's not to be left alone, who is he to leave her alone? I mean, by no means do I think this was his fault, but
he is not smarter than the doctor.
Unfortunately, a lot of people think they are.
No, so yeah. So
although he is in a way, he is a victim here too. But
I'm also not saying that it's his fault, but it is unfortunate that he thought he knew better than the doctor.
Yeah. So let's talk about that morning. So the morning of June 20th, Andrea sat down at breakfast with her 5 kids, Noah, John, Paul, Luke, and Mary. Rusty had just left for work, and her mother-in-law, as I said, was supposed to arrive at the house to start babysitting the children to help her. However, Andrea felt that this this was the time. Andrea drew a bath in the guest bathroom, and within the next hour, she would methodically drown all 5 of her children. She then called 911 to demand that the police come to her home, but refused to explain why. The operator asked Andrea a question that would later echo through a Harris County courtroom: "Are you there alone?" I had listened to the 911 recording when she was calling in, and she's just like, just come here, that she's a sick woman, send an ambulance, sure, send the cops. Right away, she called it in, and of course, they arrived. Once Andrea was arrested, her 90-minute confession was taped, and it was really horrific. So by Andrea's account, she first drowned 2-year-old Luke, followed by Paul and John. She carried each child's body to the master bedroom, placed it on the bed, and covered it with a sheet. As she was drowning 6-month-old Mary, Noah confronted her and asked what's wrong with Mary. He then realized what was happening and started running away. She actually chased Noah through the house, dragged him to the tub, and drowned him alongside his dead sister. There was no evidence that she drugged the children or anything. They were fully conscious. They knew that they were being drowned. So she didn't by any means try to ease their suffering.
Ugh.
Yeah. She then also, once she had gotten off the phone with the police, she called her husband and simply said, "You'd better come home." He recalls her telling him, "Is anyone hurt?" He asked, alarmed by the tone of her voice, and she said, "Yes." The children, all of them.
Wow. That's not the phone call you want to get.
No. So I have a little clip that I sent to Mike that I wanted to play. It's Rusty speaking, and it's a message he has for his wife.
Why did you do this, but I got to remember that, she wasn't herself. I mean, she's thinking irrationally, and, if Andrea, if you see this, I love you,
How old is your picture here?
We took this just before Mary was born, in November. November of last year. This doesn't have Mary in it because we take a family picture usually once a year, but Andrea was due late November of last year with Mary, and she had the baby November 30th. But we took this probably mid-November, or maybe a week before she was born. You can't tell she was pregnant just because.
Yeah, so from listening to that little clip, the impression that I got is that he felt really bad for her and sad for her, and that she wasn't herself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel then, if you felt like that, why did you leave her alone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Come
and
on.
unfortunately, I'm not going to even put all the blame on her because all the doctor said she should not be with these kids alone.
Yeah.
Everyone had already told them that she could only be with the kids with someone else.
Yeah, it's definitely very muddied waters. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
it's not at all.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Our,
She killed them,
yeah.
but everyone's already told the family she cannot be with those kids alone because of what's going on with her.
Yeah. She can't be trusted.
Yeah.
No. And Rusty had announced at a family gathering the weekend before the drownings that he had decided to leave her alone for an hour each morning and evening, like I had said, so that she didn't become totally dependent on him. But I mean, I felt that was selfish as well, right? Like, how can your wife has to be dependent on you if she's not even taking care of herself?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They had showed some news clippings of her, and obviously she's had all the problems that she has with postpartum psychosis, I think, and all that. Like, she herself was not even, it didn't look like she had bathed. Her hair probably hadn't been washed in forever. And if she's herself that bad, I just don't even understand his logic.
Yeah, I can't imagine leaving someone alone with my child who can't even take care of themselves. Like, it would just never happen. I would never do that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to make it real clear that none of us are saying it's his fault.
No.
But is it really all her fault? I
No.
don't know. They were told not to trust her around the kids by herself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very serious, like, postpartum is very serious.
Yeah, it is very serious. It's sad that that's the case, but I mean, they all know that she can't be left alone with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's not in her right mind.
Yeah.
She's just not.
No. The district attorney in Harris County, just originally for the death penalty in the trial, which started in 2002, and she was naturally convicted of capital murder in all 5 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
Although the defense's expert testimony agreed that Yates was psychotic, Texas law requires that in order to successfully assert the insanity defense, the defendant must prove that he or she could not discern right from wrong at the time of the crime. During trial, a jury rejected the insanity defense and found her guilty. After the guilty verdict, but before sentencing, the state dropped its request for the death penalty due to false testimony by one of its expert psychiatric,
I think, yeah.
Psychiatric. On January 6th, 2005, a Texas Court of Appeals reversed the conviction because California psychiatrist and prosecution witness Dr. Park Yates admitted he had given materially false testimony during the trial. In his testimony, Yates had stated that shortly before the murders, an episode of Law & Order had aired featuring a woman who drowned her children and was acquitted of murder by reason of insanity. The court felt that the jury heavily considered his testimony, and therefore this may have impacted the final verdict. Due to this, the verdict was overturned on appeal.
That's bizarre.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I don't know why he would bring Law & Order into it, but sure.
I mean, it's a great show, but I
It's
don't know
just
that
a
it
TV
has
show, yeah.
relevance in an actual court of law.
No, but I think what his was is that she saw that episode, so she figured, I'll just kill them and say insanity and I'll get off on it. Which never happened.
Right.
Yeah. Prior to her second trial, she told Dr. Michael Wellner that she waited for Rusty to leave for work that morning before filling the tub because she knew he would have prevented her from harming them. On January 9th, 2006, Yates again entered pleas of not guilty by reason of insanity. And on February 1st, 2006, she was granted release on bail on the condition that she be admitted to a mental health treatment facility.
Oh, okay. That's fine then.
Yeah.
Because she definitely is not well.
No. Yeah. It's sad. I mean, it's unspeakable what she did, of course. But I'm usually like, hoorah, go to jail, all of that. But in this case, it's like she clearly really needs help. And if the medication that she was prescribed, the Hildegard, was working.
It's sad because it just sounds like they should have removed the children from the situation, which is never great either because we all know foster care is not great.
It's not ideal, yeah.
Or just removed it to only the father's care, but
I think one of the things Beck had mentioned earlier, they did have other family, right? So I don't know if you'd have to go the route of having foster care, but if she's taking the medication, getting better. But one of the things that the doctors had also said is to stop having children. Because she will hit that psychotic break, and it was guaranteed. And of course it happened.
Yeah. It's unfortunate because they're so religious they wouldn't do it. But that should have been the point that one of them said, maybe we should just, one of us should go have an operation maybe.
Yeah.
So they can't have children anymore.
Yeah, but I think that was just out of question, right? I mean, if their goal is to just as many as many as they can have, as nature will allow, I think. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, a lot of religious families is you can only have sex if you plan on having a child, and if you go and get snipped, then you can't have a child. So then you're breaking God's law or bullshit. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, during that 90-minute taped confession, one of the things that she was saying is, because she had started reading the Bible religiously, and she wanted to save her children from sin, and by doing that was to take them out of this world.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does sound familiar.
That's what when you were talking about your case, I'm like, oh,
yeah,
samesies.
I noticed your. Oh my gosh.
I know. Yeah, I imagine if they coupled up together, your guy and my lady, but that'd be weird.
As long as they didn't have kids.
Yeah.
But they would. We know it.
Yeah, of course.
But also they were different religions, so that wouldn't have happened.
Yeah. On July 26, in 2006, after 3 days of deliberations, as I mentioned, Yates was found not guilty by reason of insanity. She was thereafter committed to North Texas State Hospital Vernon campus. In January 2007, she was moved to Caryville State Hospital, a low-security mental facility in Caryville, Texas. I also looked at just what Rusty was up to. So they did get divorced when she was in jail, of course. He did remarry and have another child and divorce that woman. So, yeah, he just wanted to keep having kids. I don't know. Terrifying.
Yeah. Although he wasn't the problem, really, so.
No, I couldn't even begin to understand that trauma. They had shown some clips from when they're, of course, taking the bodies out of the house and just, and wrapped in little sheets. Obviously, a lot of the police officers and the first responders on the scene are just traumatized. Yeah. Completely insane.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Usually at the conclusion of our stories, we're all like same page, angry, good and riddance. But there's no good out of this.
No.
There's nothing.
No.
It's just sadness.
Yeah.
Yep. And I think I feel like it could have been completely avoided had they listened to doctors' instructions of care, had she continued, not had Mary, had continued to take the Haldol, the prescriptions. And who knows, I mean, maybe in a few years of her being clear-headed and she was showing obviously signs of improvement, maybe then consider it in a few years. But I mean, just, one after another. Like, yeah. So, yeah.
Like hormonally, her body's in a constant state of confusion.
Of what the
You know
fuck?
what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's definitely a postpartum depression, and psychosis is definitely a thing.
Yeah, people don't take mental health seriously enough.
No.
No.
One of the things that I also just looked up just for sake of research is a lot of men also have it, but it's just not talked about. Everyone just always assumes it would be the mother.
Mental health in general, when it comes to men, is not talked about very much.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true regardless of gender. But
Yeah.
I do know what you mean.
But
like, males more so they don't talk about their feelings.
It's because right from the start, most men are told not, you fall down and hurt yourself, don't cry, blah, blah, blah. It's always,
Yeah, I mean, I was told
do
that
not
too,
show
though,
your
so-
emotion. It seems, and we're talking about our generation and before, it was
Right.
always like girls were treated differently than boys when they were growing up. Girls were allowed to show their emotions and boys weren't. And I think that's definitely changing now with the newer generations. But I mean, I know growing up, that's what it was like. Like, we didn't show our emotions as kids, really.
I just don't understand.
Sorry. You guys didn't, or you didn't?
Boys in general. Not me neither, really.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if you meant we as in
Sorry, yes.
like you and
boys.
your... Okay. I wasn't sure if you meant siblings or...
Well, my sister showed emotions.
Oh.
Mostly anger when she was young. But
They to teach their
yeah,
own.
exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
But
hope
yeah,
she
it-
listens to this.
That's it. Just end on that note.
Take care of yourself.
Yes.
Take care of your mental well-being.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many different things that everyone is going through, and I don't understand how not just ignoring what's happening and how that's a solution, right?
It's not,
You're
yeah.
not helping yourself. You're not helping anyone around you.
No. And I think too, it's a lot of people, if we're talking about mental health, it's something you don't necessarily see.
Oh, definitely.
Like
That's part of the problem.
you broke your arm, you have a cast, and you go through physio. If you're emotionally or mentally, whatever the case may be, it's much harder to be like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't be feeling this way. Maybe this is going on, right? I think, Andrea's was extremes where she was committing suicide several times, not taking care of herself.
Trying to commit suicide, yeah.
She killed herself over and
It's
over
really
again.
impressive if she killed herself that many times.
No, but it's definitely something that we need to focus more and more on and more starting that
It's
conversation.
getting society's getting better
Yeah.
about that kind of thing, but there's still a lot of room to grow. That's for
Well,
sure.
We can speak about, like, mental health for men again. It's like professional athletes. So often it's obvious, you break your hand, you break your arm, whatever, it's going to be this long to recover. But so many of them have all kinds of mental health issues because of the pain they go through all the time. And they're using drugs and they're trying to hide it.
But it's also the stress of performance, the stress of
no,
showing
definitely.
up, and showing up in a sense of whatever's happening at home might be happening at home,
Yeah.
but you have to be there on the ice or on the court or whatever, right?
And it's happened a lot in sports like hockey where if you're not quite as talented, you're expected to be more violent. And a lot of the guys just don't want to go on the ice and go get in a fight or something. And they have mental health issues with that too. So it's just, in general, just go find help.
Talk to someone.
Talk to someone.
And, find help for yourself too, but start that conversation with someone as well, right? Like, unless maybe you don't have any mental health issues, but even just having a healthy discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
keeping it
open
mindful.
that door so that people maybe,
Open up.
maybe someone else, then someone who does need to talk will know they can talk to you.
Yeah.
And then another fun tip. When you do start that conversation, shut up and listen to what the person has to say.
Yes, definitely.
Don't offer what you think they should do. Just shush and listen.
Yeah, you don't need to fix it. You need to listen.
Yes. To all of you listening to this,
Yeah.
I hear
Yes.
you and I see you.
Definitely.
Cool. Okay.
All right. There's no honor in honor killings. This is the story of the Shafia family. Tie in with this one, I've got Cole Harbour Brewing's Smoke and Mirrors. It's an imperial smoked ale. It's 8.5% alcohol. Don't be easily deceived. This smooth ale, shrouded in a smoky haze, is quite powerful. German Rauch smoked and Scottish peated malts combine for a pronounced and layered smokiness. The remarkable smoothness may leave you slipping into a trance. And I love the fact that this can's got, like...
It's very
you
textured.
can feel the texture of it. Mm-hmm. Now, the pictures of the two guns don't have anything to do with the story, but the smoke and mirrors will. The, bullshit stories that come into this one. All right.
Please be a light beer. Oh, another dark beer.
Yeah.
Kind of looks like Coca-Cola.
If you don't like it, I'll drink it.
Oh. Have you smelt it?
Very smoky.
Yes, it is. As Nina pours
Less
a
than half a
thimbleful.
sip. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to drink it as a shot.
It's definitely deep black. You can't see any light through it. It's got a brown head on it.
It smells like a bonfire.
Yeah, definitely lots of smoke on the nose. A little bit of like a dark fruit, a prune or something on the nose. Bit of roasted malts, maybe a hint of chocolate in there, but it's mostly just smoke.
It tastes like smoked meat.
Yeah, it's big smoke, big peat.
I wish you could see Nina's freaking face.
Yeah, roasted malts.
Why is this a taste? How do people enjoy this?
No, I like it. This would
That's
be
what I-
amazing with like smoky barbecue ribs or
Yeah.
something.
This makes me think I'm walking into a meat market and there's just like dead cows hanging everywhere and it's a whiff of their dead bodies is what this tastes like to me.
Oh, okay, sounds
No,
good.
I think it tastes like the best southern smoked barbecue.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, lots of smoked malts, some peat in there.
A little bit
There's-
sweet.
Yeah, there is some sweetness from the fruit. It's some kind of dark fruit, like I said, like prunes or something. A little bit of hint of chocolate sweetness in there, but not very much.
If I was at all capable of making like delicious barbecued smoked meats like this is what the beer that I would bring.
Definitely, yeah.
Next time I'm at Chuck and Hillary's, my friends who
Yes.
have a smoker, this will be the beer that I bring.
Ooh, you could have put this in the slow cooker, maybe.
And this one's
the
won a
roast.
ton of awards, too. It's like the gold medal for Canadian Brewing Awards in 2017. Another gold medal in 2016, same one. It's won the BC Beer Awards, the Festive Ale. Wins a lot of awards.
I like it. I'm not surprised that you don't like it, Nina, but that's okay.
And I never used to like this beer either. It's been over the last year that I've really opened up to it.
The can's nice, though.
Yeah, it is, yeah. All right, the story of the Shafia family spans quite a bit of the globe. Your parents and your family should be your safety net, not your end. All right, it only makes sense to start at the beginning, though, before the ultimate murder of 4 people. The patriarch of this family, an all-around terrible human, Muhammad Shafia, was born in a middle-class family in Kabul, Afghanistan, in the early 1950s. Like many people of the time, he did not make it very far when it came to a formal education, as he only made it to the 6th grade. This is not to say that he was not a smart entrepreneur, though. He was a gifted business person, and his ability to do business was only surpassed by his ambitions. He took a small electronics shop in Afghanistan to a multi-million-dollar import and export company. The brand he specialized in was Panasonic radios and Peacock brand thermoses. Never heard of them.
No.
And he'd have those shipped in from Japan. Like many people in Afghanistan, when it was time to marry, it was not a choice for him to make. His family would arrange a marriage to Rona Amir. His mother would be the first to notice her, as she was a pretty daughter to a retired army colonel. Muhammad's mother invited her family over to their house so that they could get a good look at her. After the meeting, Muhammad would announce his consent to the marriage. It's kind of funny that he had to give consent. Not much else there.
And they came to just look at her? Like,
Yes.
okay.
It's a showing. When one of Rona's brothers asked if she would consent to this marriage, she was quoted as saying, "Give me away in marriage if he is a good man. Don't if he is not." They fucked up there. The pair was married in February 1979 with all the pomp and circumstance you would expect at the Kabul's Intercontinental Hotel. Rona would wear a frilly dress that was baby blue in color and would wear a matching veil. Muhammad was wearing a purple suit and is reported to have long sideburns.
Gross.
I love the colorful, though.
Yeah.
Like the wedding ceremonies that they have there. Everything is so brightly colored. It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
No, like, oh, it's white, and the guy wears black, and isn't that exciting?
So photos can be found of the couple smiling in front of their cake at the wedding, but Rona would later write in her journal, "My lot in life began a downward spiral." Can you say foreshadowing? Rona and Muhammad would try for years to get pregnant. When things were not going as planned, they would even travel to India to try fertility treatments. Unfortunately for the couple, nothing seemed to work. This would cause a rift in their marriage as Muhammad expected children from their union.
Expected children.
Did they
Yeah.
know that it wasn't him, though?
Doesn't matter though, right? This patriarchy bullshit, right? My husband started picking on me, she wrote. He wouldn't allow me to go visit my mother, and at home he would find fault with my cooking and serving meals, and he would find excuses to harass me. After about a decade, she told Muhammad, "Go and take another wife. What can I do?" This would drive the couple to do medical testing to see why there was no children. The test would come back to say that Rona was unable to have children. So keeping with Afghanistan customs, Muhammad would go on to search for a second wife to bring babies to the family. Just to make it clear, Afghanistan and the Muslim faith allow polygamy in many sects, although it is not widespread. Muhammad would find a new bride from one of his friends' families. He would claim that Rona had handpicked his new bride, although this is contested. It was known, though, that a second wife was 17-year-old Tuba Muhammad Yaha. Muhammad was double her age, making him old enough to be her father. This is just so wrong on many levels. The marriage between Muhammad and Tuba took place in 1989, and the photos from their ceremony would feature both Tuba and Rona prominently. Photos would be sure to have Muhammad with his two wives on each arm. The three would live together in one house, as was custom in Afghanistan. Tuba would finally give Muhammad what he wanted as time would go on, as they would produce 7 children for him. Yeah.
Many kids. Oh my goodness.
While Rona might not have been their biological mother, she bonded with most of the children and would raise them as if they were hers. Sadly, her relationship with her co-wife was not a good one. Within 1 week of their second marriage, Tuba would become pregnant. In September 1989, Tuba would give birth to their first child, a daughter. Rona had still hoped to have a child of her own in the beginning, but it was made obvious that she was being muscled out of the sexual relationship with her husband by Tuba. It's said to note that Rona wrote, "Happiness left me when the second child in the family was born, named Hamid." In 1991, the next child was born, a daughter named Sahar. Tuba would give this child to Rona to raise as her own. Now, of course, this was not out of the goodness of her heart, as she was using the kindness against her. This would spell the absolute end to her sexual relationship with her husband. 1992 would see the family leave Afghanistan. The country was gripping in a civil war, and it had finally come to the capital city. Hundreds of people were killed, and thousands of others were forced from their homes. The Shafia family fled the country by car and would arrive in Pakistan as a family of 6. Tuba was not finished popping out children yet either, as she was pregnant with their 4th child, yet another daughter. This child's name has been protected by a publication ban, so we will just call her Child 4. In other things, they were called Child A, B, and I think A, B, and C. So it all depends what you want to go with. Well, in Pakistan, they would also have another son that we will call Child 5. Child number 6 was another daughter named Geeta.
Not protected by this
No.
ban? Okay.
She would not get to know Pakistan well as her family started picking up their life once again. This time they would move their family to the United Arab Emirates. Being in the United Arab Emirates, Muhammad would start up a new business named M. Shafi Trading. Less than a year after moving to Dubai, his business was doing even better than ever. Panasonic would award him a $50,000 bonus for being the top-selling company in the region.
Wow.
Which would be a lot of money back then.
Or now.
That's true. but even more then.
Oh, yeah.
His company would expand past just electronics, though. He would begin to import used American cars. A point that would become ironic in a sick way is that he would purchase these vehicles from auctions that specialize in damaged vehicles. And he would also get into the real estate market in a big way. It was this move to the United Arab Emirates that would give the family a taste of Western culture for the first time, though. While the UAE is an Islamic country, it has a lot of Western influence. This extended to the family's children, as they would attend a private American school where they would be made to wear uniforms and learn to speak English. This would also be the first time these kids would meet children from other parts of the world. This was also the time where the 7th child was born, and this one is also protected by a ban. Unfortunately for Rona, this move left her further removed from her husband. Tuba was even able to learn to drive in Dubai, something that would not have been allowed back in Afghanistan at the time. Mm-hmm. Actually, it's probably still the same.
And I think they just passed a law that women can in Afghanistan.
Oh, okay. Tuba spent as much money as she wanted on gold and other status symbols, all the while scheming to ensure that Rona would not be wanted by their husband. Tuba would do all this without shouting or fighting to ensure that she would not be reprimanded by her husband, because of course he was the head of the household, right?
Because he has a penis.
Yeah.
So
the family spent more than a decade in the United Arab Emirates, although they were not happy to stay there long term, and they were always looking for a new country to move to that would offer them full citizenship and not just permanent residency. One such country that they looked into was New Zealand. Unfortunately for all involved, though, Rona did not pass a medical exam, and they were denied.
that's interesting. I mean, I don't know anything about trying to permanently move to another country, but I don't know what
when
a medical exam
when we immigrated from Germany to Canada, we had to go through a full medical exam as well. Like one of the things, like obviously check your health, that you're not coming here with the free health or for the free health care, and like to make sure that you're actually a female and that you're actually declaring of what you are. So full physical. It's pretty intense.
I don't know
Crazy.
why that matters, though. I guess I guess if you're running away from something and you're saying,
Well, I think a lot of it's they don't want to import sick people.
Well, yeah, but I mean the gender part. I don't know why that matters.
That was also
But I think
a
it's
long
more
time
just
ago.
a long time ago.
Fair.
Yeah.
But I also think it's just to prove who you are.
Yeah, make sure you're not lying about your identity or something.
Right. Yeah.
So when that did not work, they began to look again. They did move to Australia for a time, but left within a year. Tuba claimed that the children did not like the country, but it sounds like it was more because Muhammad broke the conditions of their visas when he tried to purchase land and they were deported. For some reason, Rona took the brunt force of the anger from Muhammad, no matter what she did.
Even though it was his fault.
Yeah. She's just becoming the brunt of everything.
Yeah.
That'll change,
Scapegoat.
though. Yeah. By the end of the decade, Muhammad and the family were multimillionaires. They did not want for money at all, but they still longed for a new country to live. In 2007, they found out about an immigration program that had been introduced by the government of Quebec, a province in Canada. The program offered permanent residence with the promise of eventual citizenship to people that would invest a significant amount of money in their province in a $40,000 check to the province.
What year was this?
2007.
2007.
Okay.
Muhammad would also invest $2 million in a strip mall in the suburbs of Montreal. He would then invest $200,000 in the construction of their new home.
Whoa.
Yeah, so he's definitely doing exactly what they wanted.
Spending.
Yes. Because polygamy is not legal in Canada, they started out with Muhammad, Tuba, and their 7 children moving to Canada and moving to Saint Laurent borough of Montreal. So while the rest of the family was off to Canada to start their new life, Rona was sent to Europe to live with relatives. She had not been away from the family since her marriage, and she was mad at herself for missing them so much as she was so poorly treated by her husband and the second wife. Because it takes time to build a house, the family lived in a smaller home for 2 years. The home was a 4-bedroom and 2-bathroom, much smaller than 9 and then 10 people needed. They did not bother to unpack much of their furniture either, as the kids would sleep on brown mats on the floor. 5 months later, the family would sponsor Rona's immigration, as they would tell the authorities that Rona was a cousin and that they were bringing her to Canada to cook and be a housekeeper.
Wow.
Basically, a slave.
I'd be like, I'm wife one.
Yeah.
One is better than two.
Unfortunately, that would be deportation, probably, because, again, polygamy is not legal here. Unless you're in Bountiful. That horrible place.
No comment.
Sadly, Tuba and Muhammad would hold onto Rona's passport and ID, so she could not leave.
That's horrible.
Yeah, so she was a prisoner.
Yeah.
She was greeted by the same old Tuba. Your life is in my hands, she would say, according to Rona's diary. You are my servant. Rona moved into the bedroom with Geeti and Sahar, their sleeping mat side by side. The family shared rooms with Hamid and child 5 sharing a room. Zainab and child 4 and child 7 would share the room with their parents. It was this time between June 2007 and June 2009, though, when things would turn very sour for the family. It is said that the home was more like a prison than a home, and this would be reminiscent of a 14th century prison. They may have had all the money in the world to purchase nice clothing, fast food, and the likes, but they had no freedom. If one of the daughters even spoke to a strange male, it would be enough to destroy the family's reputation, they thought. So getting into more of this bullshit. Muhammad would spend a lot of time out of Canada on business, but when he was away, he would put his oldest son in charge of the household, as was custom. Unfortunately for the family, he would run the house as a tyrant, just like his father. Just love it. It's neither his first wife or his second wife. It's the oldest son.
Yeah, I mean, that's cultural, though.
Zainab and her younger brother, Hamed, went to the same high school, and while Zainab would never cross her brother, as she was afraid of him, she would hide things from him. In February 2008, Zainab would get Valentine's from a classmate of Pakistani descent. She responded to him with a secret email that said, "Be aware of my bro. If my bro is around, act like complete strangers. We'll talk if my bro is not around, because I don't want to give him the slightest idea we're friends." This boy, Amar Wahid, went with this ruse, though, as he liked her and wanted to get to know her better. Unfortunately for all, this sneaking around did not last long. Around a month after the Valentine, when her parents were off to Dubai on holiday, Zainab decided to have Amar, her new boyfriend, over to the house.
No.
She was not aware that Hamad was also on his way home, though. Amar hid in the garage, but was found by her brother. Her brother shook his hand and asked him to leave the house at this point. After this, though, she was removed from her school and was never allowed to return to it.
How old was she?
She was a teenager. I forget what age at this point.
Okay.
For the next 10 months, she was basically under house arrest in her room. She would not go to school and would be unable to leave the house without a relative with her at all times. Of course, with this family, it was not just Zainab that was having a bad time. Sahar, then 16, was living her own horror show. She was adjusting to life in Canada and the differences in culture when her mother, Tuba, accused her of kissing a boy in her class. Tuba stormed into the classroom she attended and cornered the teacher. Child 4 was used as a translator. The teacher, Claudia, would say, she said she did not accept her daughter kissing a boy, and that it did not fall within the parameters of her values. Mortified by this, she became depressed and suicidal. She would try to eat the silica gel packs that you find in places like shoeboxes mixed into water. Geeti and Rona rushed to her, and she recovered, but it was said that Tuba did not move from the kitchen, and she was heard saying, "She can go to hell, let her kill herself." On May 7th, 2008, Batshaw, an English-speaking child welfare agency, was called in by their high school as Sahar had gone to her vice principal. She was crying while telling them of the suicide attempt, her brother Hamid throwing scissors at her hand, and the pressure the family was putting on her to wear a hijab. Hijab, sorry. She also told them that the fourth child was acting as a spy for the parents, and even that her mother had barely spoken to her in months, and she had also ordered the other children not to speak to her.
Oh my God.
That's so awful.
The women at Batshaw classified this case as a Code 1 and had a colleague heading to the school right away. Unfortunately, when the social worker, Jeanne Rowe, arrived, Sahar had changed her tune. She was still crying, but she was now claiming that it was not true. Before I could even meet with her properly, she kept saying, I don't want you to meet my parents. I want to go home, Rose said. She was very, very scared of her parents knowing about the report. She didn't explain why. Fortunately, protocol stated that they must phone the parents. The social worker was able to contact Tuba, and she arrived at the school soon after with Zainab with her. She claimed that everything that Sahar said was untrue. A few minutes later, Muhammad and Hamed walked into the room. Muhammad was furious and wanted to know the source of the information. Rose said, I told him I could not give him the source, and he said he would speak to his lawyer because the report was not true. For Ona, nothing changed, and she spent her time getting out of the house and wandering the streets and parks where she would find payphones to call her family overseas. She would go outside to cry, said Deba, her sister. She was saying, I'm fed up with my life, and I want God to finish my life. I want it to be an accident. Her family would put her in contact with the victims' right activist group for Afghani women that was located in Virginia. She would talk to one of the women there 3 times a week. She said her husband would humiliate her and beat her up. I encouraged her to take classes to learn something. She said she was not allowed to do that. Once Zainab was 19, she was finally allowed to go back to school, but of course not the same school that she met her boyfriend, Amar. On top of her school, she would also do night French classes with her brother and mother. So they were trying to keep her too busy. Mm-hmm. In her very rare time alone one day, she emailed her old boyfriend to say she missed him badly. It would go on to say, Okay, this is in like terrible shorthand for teens. So
it's quoted.
I'm just
That's
gonna,
fine. Just say quote.
Yeah, quote.
Yeah.
I still remember you told me you love me the first time. Sorry, it's like...
It's a quote.
Yeah.
You don't have to apologize.
At the end of the note, Zainab said she still cried about the day her brother caught him at the house. Bobby works hard, she wrote. Make something out of yourself, and so you'll be happy. In 2009, they would start to secretly see each other in a few different locations, and even sometimes with her sister Sahar and her new boyfriend. Sahar's boyfriend's aunt, who he lived with, was quoted as saying, the day her parents knew she would be a dead woman. She told me this several times. Now, Sahar's little sister Geeti, that was now 13 years old, was a rebel in her own right. She had never lived in Afghanistan and grew up among the wealth at a private school in Dubai. Now, living in Canada, she had absolutely no interest in living the life of her father's conservative traditions.
Woo.
She took it a step further, though, as she would flaunt this fact in front of her parents. She would wear makeup and trendy clothing. She would spend more time skipping school or hanging out in the bathrooms during class than anything else. Sounds like something a kid would do.
Sounds like a 13-year-old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary.
This led to a beating from her father that would be brought up during the trial later. Most of the children would be the brunt of violent abuse from their father over the years. And I would only assume, I didn't read it, but I'd only assume probably from Hamed too, because he was just as bad as the dad.
Right.
These beatings would drive Zainab to finally remove herself from the issue as she would run away from home. The date was April 17th, 2009. Remember that she was almost 20 at this time. Her brother Hamed called 911 in a panic, telling the operator that his older sister had run away from home. She stay at home usually, he said. She left a note and she's nowhere to be found. Asked what the note said, Hamed replied, I would like to live my own life. These are quotes. Mm-hmm. Only a few minutes after hanging up the phone with 911, he called back. They didn't come yet, he told the dispatcher. Again, she's almost 20 years old.
Sorry, he waited a few minutes and then
Yes.
was like, no one's here yet?
Yeah.
Okay. Patience is virtue.
Zainab found her way to a woman's shelter where she would take shelter from her family. This was the straw that broke the camel's back, as the saying goes, as her father saw this as the ultimate betrayal. She would be out in the world without supervision, and she would be having sex, or people would at least think this.
What?
Yes.
She's at a woman's shelter.
Well, she's not in his care. she's probably supposed to be in his care until she gets married is probably...
Those are the only two options.
Yeah, probably.
Till she gets sold off for marriage?
Basically. At first, her mother and father conspired to punish her, but this punishment would end up in the mass murder that followed 10 weeks later. When Zainab's siblings found out about her disappearance, they refused to go home as they were scared of their father's reaction. They went to a stranger's house and asked them to call the police.
They were afraid of him taking out his anger on them.
Yes.
So sad.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
I
probably,
mean, for the experiences that they've had,
Yeah.
that's what happens, right?
But then going to the neighbor and calling the police is going to make it so much worse.
Well, only if they have to go back.
This would mean that 3 911 calls had been made about this family that day, so the police got moving. Anne-Marie Choquette was one of the Montreal police officers that responded to the call. She met the kids at the home and escorted them the rest of the way home. She would interview each one separately at the home before confronting the parents. Each child interviewed talked of the abuse, and it only got worse as the stories piled up. The same child protection agency that was called in before was called in to decide what should happen with the children. In the end, they decided that the children were no longer in danger, and the kids were left in the parents' care.
What?
Yeah.
Idiots.
The warning signs were everywhere, but no matter how many visits to the police and child welfare, nothing changed. So I pulled this part from a Macleans.ca article. Zainab was still in the shelter when Rona overheard a conversation so terrifying that she shared it with her sister in France. I will go to Afghanistan, Mohammed told Hamed and Tuba. I will prepare the documents, I will sell my property, and I will kill Zainab. What about the other one? I will kill the other one too, he said. Rona was sure that the other one was her. She was shivering, her sister said. She was afraid. I told her, don't be afraid. This is not Afghanistan. This is not Dubai. This is Canada. Nothing will happen.
Horrible.
Zainab would eventually get back in contact with her mother, and after some talk, she would come back home. On May 1st, 2009, she would walk through the doors of her family home again. This date was picked as it was the date her father would head back to Dubai for business. Smart.
Yeah.
Part of the reason she came home is that her mother promised that if she really loved her boyfriend, Amar, they could marry. Her family did all they could to talk her out of marrying the Pakistani boyfriend, though, and her mother's brother was brought on board to try and talk sense into the girl.
Why do they hate this guy?
Because he's Pakistani. Mm-hmm. He's not Afghani.
Okay.
Yep. Her uncle called his brother-in-law, the father, and asked him if he approved of the marriage. Muhammad's reaction was the following from Maclean's article. According to Javid, Muhammad called his daughter a whore and a prostitute and outlined a plot to end her life and maintain his honor. Javid would invite some of the family to Sweden, plan a picnic near some water, and they would throw Zainab in. Javid said he swore at Muhammad and hung up the phone, then scrambled to warn both Tuba and another brother living in Montreal. His sister thanked him. It's very good that you told me, she said, but for some reason that he never fully explained, Javid did not directly warn his niece.
Well, yeah, I mean, I kind of understand that. He warned his sister, her mother, right?
Yeah. I guess he thought that was enough.
Well, a mother should protect her children.
Yeah, should. With their father out of town, the daughters were spending more time with their boyfriends and dishonoring their family more. Yes, I know, gross.
/ being free for 2 fucking seconds.
Yeah. Zainab would be married on May 18th, and the family was not happy. Everyone, their heart was bleeding, Haidari said. Marrying a foreigner affected everybody. This was only 6 weeks before the bodies would be recovered.
Okay, well, hearts are supposed to bleed. It's kind of what they do.
Again from Maclean's article. The next morning before the reception, Zainab had her hair styled and her hands painted with henna. Haidari drove her to the restaurant, and on the way he tried to counsel Zainab one last time to reconsider the marriage. But her answer was clear. Dear uncle, there has been a lot of cruelty towards me, she said. I sacrificed myself for my sisters so they will get freedom after me. That freedom, it turned out, was short-lived. Nobody from the groom's family showed up. Ironically enough, they did not approve of the union either, and her mother was in tears. The embarrassment was too much to stomach. Tuba just fainted.
Oh my God.
She fell on a chair. People were throwing water at her. Zainab threw herself at the chest of her mother and said, "If you do not agree, I will reject this boy." It's just so fucked up. Like so much about the Shafias, the events of this day depend on who is doing the remembering. But one thing is certain. Zainab asked for a divorce and Wahid agreed. She said, "I cannot do this. I can't ruin my family's reputation." Obviously, we loved each other, so it hurt both of us. The mullah declared a divorce right at the restaurant. They were husband and wife for barely 24 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. Hamid was spying on his sister during the time and taking photos of Sahar with her boyfriend. Would end up hopping on a plane on June 1st to meet his father in Dubai. This would be the proof of the dishonor of Sahar also, and this would be why she deserved to die. As soon as Zainab's brother left the country, she got back in touch with her ex-husband. "We had an amazing, lovely story together," she wrote. "It was my dream to marry you, and I did it once, so now even one day if something happens to us, like dead, I won't die without my dreams being fulfilled." Sorry, this is written by a teen, and it's not in great English.
Well, even besides it, it's written in like extreme text.
Yeah, extreme teen text.
Short form. There's a lot of numbers involved and not real words.
Yeah.
It's rough looking.
During this time, Hamed and his father were using Google to make searches such as, "Can a prisoner have control of their real estate?" as well as Canada mountains with lakes in Quebec. The next night, June 9th, Zainab sent another email to Wahid. She had not seen her dad since fleeing the house, and he was due home in just a few days. Another one of these very teen texts. "I must go to the airport and say sorry," she wrote. "I hope he forgets everything." She would be dead in 3 weeks. Gidi would continue to flaunt her distaste for conservative ways, and this would seal her death warrant also. So that's another one from the McLean's article. That June, Fahima, Rona's relative in Virginia, returned home after a month spent working in Afghanistan with her US-based group for Afghani women. On her phone were numerous voicemails from Rona. "I really need to talk to you." They were desperate messages, she recalled. It sounded like she was in big trouble. It seemed to me like she wanted to do something, but because Rona always used a payphone, she had no way to reach her. She never called back, and then I heard she was dead. Muhammad and Hamed landed in Montreal on June 13th, 2009. By all accounts, including his own, Muhammad kissed Zainab on the forehead and forgave her for everything. In his version, he also slipped her $100, but nothing, of course, was truly forgiven. He just wanted his daughter to feel comfortable and assume things were fine. Now the Google searches were ramping up even more, from Muhammad and Hamed, including mountains on water in Quebec, to rent a boat in Montreal, and fax documentaries on murder. On June 19th, Hamed canceled Zainab's cell phone plan. The day after that, he would be tracked via GPS on his phone to a location 300 kilometers away from their home in Montreal. Once home, he would get back on Google and search where to commit a murder. This would spell 10 days before the murders.
I mean, my Google search history isn't like totally innocent.
Yeah.
Because of our
podcast?
research, but I definitely have not Googled that.
Yeah, no.
Like, there's a line. You have crossed it.
Yeah. And I mean, this wouldn't have probably been even looked into until they murdered a bunch of people.
Yeah.
Muhammad would purchase a used 2004 Nissan Sentra for a summer road trip they were going to take from Montreal to Vancouver. Or was that located Niagara Falls? Or maybe even somewhere else. The final location was never solid.
It's not that far from Montreal to Niagara Falls. You don't really need to buy a vehicle for that.
Yeah. Well, it's either that or there was a lot of people in the family, right? It's either that or fly.
Yeah, I mean, it would be. I'm not saying it wouldn't be a nice road trip. I'm just, I guess I assumed that they already had a vehicle.
Yeah. Most family would be a nice road trip.
Yeah. Yeah.
They claim the whole point of the trip was to go on vacation, though, and this is why there was not a set plan. The family would head out in 2 vehicles, with the family split up between the new Nissan and their Lexus to make the plan work. They left on June 23rd, 2009. Not a ton is known about the quiet talks between the parents Muhammad, Tuba, and the oldest son Hamed, but the police were able to track the trip through the text messages that Sahar was sending off during the road trip. This would mean that the police could retrace the exact route of the trip. They would spend the first night in a hotel in Grand Ramus. The next day, they would get back in the cars and head south towards Ottawa, the capital of Canada, and Ontario. If you were to plot their trip onto a map, it would end up being a 450-kilometer horseshoe. Family would take detours. They would actually be reconnaissance missions to see if the location were good for their planned murder. After their detours, they would make their way to Niagara Falls in the early hours of the morning of June 25th, where they would stay in a motel. Sahar was your typical teenager, though, taking lots of photos and the likes, and it was her phone that would give more insight into the horrible plans that were afoot. On June 27th, while still staying in the Niagara Falls area, Sahar's phone was used to call Hamed's cell phone. His phone was pinged off of a tower around 16 kilometers away from the Kingston Mills lock, one of the locations that Hamed and Mohammed had scoped out earlier in the trip. This means they had backtracked 5 hours to confirm their kill location.
I'm not really sure why they stayed overnight between Montreal and Ottawa. It's not a long drive.
They're purposely...
No,
Yeah,
it's
I know.
just like sketchy from the get-go.
On June 29th, 2009, the family checked out of their days-in room, and the cameras in the lobby can see Hamed paying the bill for both hotel rooms with cash, because you're not going to use credit cards when you're trying to kill people. When the family finally hit the highway, it was 8 p.m. This was all part of the plan, though, as they wanted the family to be sleepy. This would mean that the family members would be tired and groggy and less likely to be able to react when the attack came. From what is believed to have happened that night, the caravan of cars would be led by Hamed. They drove east along Queen Elizabeth Way, and as they approached Toronto, they would take a quote-unquote scenic tour. Sahar would take a photo of Rogers Centre as they went by at about 9:40 p.m. She would also snap a photo of the CN Tower. The car would then turn up Yonge Street through downtown. They would then turn east on Highway 401. At 10:30, they would make a quick bathroom break at a McDonald's. Nearing 11 p.m., they would be back on the road, and Sahar would answer a call from a friend where they would talk for just under 40 minutes.
40?
That's almost midnight, yeah.
Damn.
Again, this is a child, right?
Yeah,
Or
I
a
mean-
teenager, I should say.
Yeah. Quick conversation.
Yeah. This would be
40
the last
minutes, yeah.
This would be the last time she responded to a phone call or text. The two cars drove through the darkness past the town of Trenton, Belleville, and Odessa. It is believed that Muhammad was behind the wheel at the Nissan at this point. They would continue past the major exits for the Kingston, Ontario area. They would have all been bright signs for hotels and food. They would finally get off the highway at Highway 15, the city's final off-ramp, and the one that would steer them towards the locks. The clock would show right now about 1:30 a.m. They would arrive at the locks and park at the parking lot. Muhammad got out of the Nissan and Tuba got into the car. She was to stay with the soon-to-be dead passengers to keep them from getting suspicious while Muhammad and Hamid went to find a motel room. Of course, they were all in various stages of sleep and they did not suspect a thing. Now only 5 minutes away at the Kingston East Motel, Muhammad and Hamid woke up the manager so they could book a room. Disturbingly, they could not agree on how many guests they would have, other than they needed 2 rooms.
Sketchy. So
I don't know how many
sketchy.
guests, but we
Yeah.
have 2 rooms.
They would go between 9 and 6 people and settle on 6. Hamid would hand over the cash. Child 4, 5, and 7, who we don't know the names, were left in the rooms. The other 2 headed back to the locks. When the pair arrived in the car, Tuba jumped out of the car and ran to the Lexus. The time for the murder had arrived. It is unknown exactly where it happened at the locks, but the 3 daughters and Muhammad's original wife, Rona, were held underwater one by one until they were robbed of their life. 3 of the 4 had bruises on the tops of their heads, leading to the suspicions of violent blows being rained down on their heads in their final moments. The 4 bodies were then put back in the Nissan to begin staging the tragic accident that they had planned. They moved the car into position near the water. The route to the water was not a clear one, though, and it seemed a bit suspicious, as it would mean the Nissan would have to jump a large curb, drive through a grassy section, make a hard left turn around some rocks, and then a quick right turn around a wall. This is not quick reaction that could be mistaken for an accident. They left the car running, though, and reached in the window to put the car into drive. They assumed that it would propel the car into the water on its own. This was not the case, though, as the car got hung up on the ledge and stopped.
Obviously.
Yeah. The car was running and the bodies were in the car, but the plan was falling apart in front of the three's eyes. One of the three ended up reaching into the car and turning off the ignition. They had to move quickly as they did not want to be caught red-handed. The only thing that they could think of at this point, likely due to the lack of sleep, was to ram the car with their Lexus. This collision would shatter the Lexus's left headlight and scatter plastic bits all over the place.
That'll make it look like an accident.
Yeah.
Let's headbutt it.
Our own car.
Yeah. They would get out of the car and work to pick up the shards, but were unable to find all of them.
Obviously.
They sped away from the scene and headed back to the hotel with the 3 children that they had left there. Their murders took place in early hours of June 30th, 2009. The victims were Zainab, 19, Sahar, 17, Geeti, 13, and Rona, 50. Later that morning at 7:55 a.m., Hamed would call the police to report a single-car fender bender claiming they had crashed their Lexus into a telephone pole near their home in Montreal.
What?
Yes, he had dropped off his parents at the hotel and rushed back to their home a province over. Once home, he would swap vehicles for their family's green Pontiac minivan. Once the swap was done, he would rush back where they were in Ontario. He called his father at 8:30 a.m. at the Kingston East Motel, and they spoke for a while. He then phoned Sahar's cell phone, even though he knew that there was no way it would be answered, as it was the bottom of the waterway they left it in. When it went to voicemail, he would phone back one more time, trying to help their alibi.
Awful people.
Yes. Once Hamed had made it back to the motel, he picked up his family, and they dropped the 3 unnamed children off at a local Tim Hortons. This is when they would head to the police station to make a missing persons report around noon.
But how old were these kids they dropped off at Timmy's?
They're
or
a
are
mix.
they the ones that we don't
So
know?
2 of them are older than Geeti. So 2 of them are older than 13, and then 1 is younger.
Still, though. It's
Babies.
young,
Yeah, especially for a family that doesn't want their 19-year-old daughter leaving the house.
right?
So that was at noon. Parks Canada had already alerted the police to a sunken car in the locks that had been spotted by a ranger early in the morning. This meant that the police were already on the scene when Hamad and Mohammed and Tuba had arrived at the station. The police did not need much help connecting these 3 people with the dead bodies found in the car. They would lead all 3 into a private room to tell them the news about their children. So, of course, they didn't think they killed them yet. Mohammed would be interviewed by Constable Dempster, where he would drone on about his business dealings. He would also mention without prompting that his kids like to turn on their car and take it without asking first. He would explain that they would arrive at the pull-off where the car was found because it was very late and his wife Tuba had a headache. She would stay with, and I quote, ones that are no longer, while he and Hamed went to find the hotel room. Once they found the hotel room, Tuba met them at the hotel with the whole group. He then explained that Hamed left for work on the building or something back in Montreal right away. He would then claim that Zainab and Sahar would come over and ask for the keys to the Nissan so they could grab clothing out of the trunk, insinuating that they would have taken it. Of course, this was all bullshit, and the Nissan would never leave the parking lot. The questioning would go back to the hotel. This is some of the questioning. How did your wife know which hotel to go to? Dempster asked. You know, the distance was little, he said. Still puzzled, Dempster asked another question. What do you think happened, Mohammed? I just woke up this morning and didn't see them. That's it, he answered. I don't know anything else. You know the car, your car, the Nissan was found underwater, he continued. You said it, Mohammed answered. Any thoughts, any ideas how it got there? No, not at all, he said, because this is the first time such an incident has befallen me. And he left the interview room. Mohammed checked his watch. After Mohammed was interviewed, they moved on to Hamed. They asked him all the same questions as they had his father. They moved into these questions. Why Montreal? Hamed's reason ranged from something personal to I forgot my laptop to something you don't feel like staying in one place with your parents, you know. Each new response only made Dempster that much more suspicious. Hamed, do you know what happened to your sisters? He asked, point blank. No. You don't? No. The officer was not buying the story, though, being thrown around, and he told Hamed of an eyewitness that had seen the 2 cars in the parking lot, but only one leaving the lot. This eyewitness was an 8-year-old boy.
Oh my gosh.
Hamed came back with the following. You mean someone pushed them in? Hamed said.
That's oddly specific.
Yeah.
Rear-ended the car.
Up until this point, Dempster had never suggested such a scenario. Hamed, I think you know more than what you were telling me today, he continued. I have no idea, Hamed answered. You mean someone must have come together with them? I'm not saying that person caused it to happen, Dempster said. I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but there is somebody out there that knows what really happened, and we need that person to speak up. Hamed said that he was shocked by the suggestion. If I would have witnessed something, I would be the first person to tell my mom and dad, he insisted. How would I feel inside? Dempster would say he was not accusing anyone of the family members of anything. He did state, though, they would have the police head over to the Lexus to ensure the story panned out. Tuba was next up for the interview with Dempster, and he got right to the point. What I'm trying to understand, and I think everyone wants to know, is how the car got from the motel to the water, he said. She said, can I say? He said, yes, please. Tuba said she was the one who steered the Nissan into Kingston, but was too tired and nauseous to go any further. She parked somewhere and waited for the others to find a place to sleep. When they got to the motel, they wanted to come get me, she explained, but I came myself. She was changing for bed around 2 a.m. when Zainab walked in to ask for the keys. I don't understand what happened after that. She showed absolutely no emotion to the police while being questioned, and she would claim that Zainab, who did not have a license, was desperate to get home and took the car. Tuba said, I think she thought, my mom and dad are asleep. Let's go for a drive and return.
At 2 a.m.
Yes. Now, it's funny because they keep saying it was Zainab. Why wouldn't it be the first wife? Why wouldn't she be the one driving? Because she was in the car too, right?
Because she was invisible by then.
She's cleaning.
Were you there when the car went in the water? Dempster asked a few minutes later. No, I was not there, she said. If you were not there, my job is to find out what happened and tell you, he continued. As a parent, one parent to another, if something happened to my child, I'd want to know the truth. Tuba nodded in agreement. I would have told you everything, but haven't seen anything, she said. If I knew, I would have told you, and you could have helped me. It just sounds so friggin' guilty.
Mm-hmm.
Dempster leaned in closer. People have not been truthful to us today. Hamed would end up back in the interview room at 8:40 p.m., and they would ask him about his accident he had reported to the Montreal police. He would state that he did not want his dad to know about the accident. He'd also say, I don't know where you're going with this, honestly, he said. I didn't chase her, man. Did your dad? Dempster asked. No. Dempster would ask Hamed what he thought his sisters were doing cruising the streets of the outskirts of Kingston at 2 a.m., and his response was, I don't know, you know. Hamed said, I want to find out as much as you. At first the police did not believe the family was involved and only thought it was a crazy accident. But as the police learned of Hamed's supposed accident in Montreal on the same day, things started to click. They still did not have enough evidence to get a search warrant, though, for the Lexus. In the end, the police liaison would talk the family into allowing the police to view the car. With this access, the police were able to see the damage of both vehicles, and this is where they finally put the theory forward that the Lex was used to ram the Nissan Sentra into the locks.
Couldn't they have just, lifted it over the edge and done it?
Oh, probably. But they were all sleep-deprived, and that's probably why they didn't think of that. And I'm happy they didn't, because this is what really screwed them over.
Seal the deal.
Muhammad, Tuba, and Hamed were arrested on July 22, 2009. The trial will begin later that year, with jury selection on October 11th and the trial beginning on October 20th, 2009. One thing that came out of the trial was that Tuba was not a Canadian citizen, and as such, would be deported for the first-degree murder charge. She would not have the right to fight this either, as only Canadian citizens have that right. On January 29th, 2012, the jury would finally come to a conclusion after deliberation of 15 hours. All three would get 4 counts of first-degree murder. This carried an automatic sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole for 25 years. There was an update to the case more recently that Muhammad would also be deported after he serves his time. Well, there's my story. It's a sad one where 4 women lost their lives because of bullshit honor system in a family.
It seems like there was a lot of planning and a lot of work and no actual outcome.
Yeah.
Right from the get-go, it was obviously them.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Which, for justice is a great thing.
Yeah.
And it's not like this is news that criminals are stupid. But it's horrible.
I don't know.
It's just too bad that a stupid fake honor system is what lost all these women's lives.
Yeah. Like none of them did anything.
Yeah. They just tried to live their life.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't there more than dishonor in their name based on what they did by killing them?
Oh,
yeah, exactly.
Right? Because, I mean, that's the name now stands out and it's ruined because of what they did. Because the women had...
They've dishonored themselves more than the imagined amount of dishonor they were receiving from these women.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's interesting, too, of all the other places that they lived in, because it sounded like they were traveled.
Yeah.
You would see that, especially, I mean, moving to a place like Canada, right? We have such a multicultural system that how are you so jaded to think that that's still even a thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's some backwards thinking for sure.
Absolutely. Okay.
All right, well, thanks for tuning in. If you like the show, you can find us on brewcrime.com. You can find us on social media, Facebook and Twitter at Brew Crime. On Instagram, you can find us at Pacific Beer Chat. You can also find us on our Facebook group. Look up Brew Crime the group. You can find our audio on YouTube or all of the podcast apps.
Yeah, reach out. We'd love to have more interactions with our listeners, that's for sure.
Yeah, you can email us at brewcrime@pacificbeerchat.com. And thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Peace.
Bye.
Brew Crime's intro was created by Mike using Creative Commons Attribution licensed audio from purple-planet.com, soundbible.com, and freesoundeffects.com. Logo design was by Ben Greenberg. All cases and stories were written by Beck, Nina, and Mike, and our sources are put into the show notes for each episode. We always want to give credit to the people that research the cases we talk about. Check out our store at brewcrime.threadless.com, where you can purchase swag like t-shirts, phone cases, beach towels, and all kinds of cool stuff. We can also be found on your favorite podcast apps, our hosts, Spreaker.com, or brewcrime.com, as well as at Brewcrime on Twitter, at Brewcrime on Facebook, at facebook.com/groups/brewcrime. Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Pacific Beer Chat. Here is a promo from one of the podcasts on the Michigan Sports and Entertainment Network.
Hi, everybody. I'm RJ Metzger.
And I'm Rachel Metzger.
And we're the Skeptical Skeptics.
Each week we talk about all the crazy things in the world, ranging from the paranormal to Bigfoot to UFOs.
And we look at it from the perspective of the believer, the skeptic, and everything in between.
So come check us out on the MSC Podcast Network.
Or go to skepticalskeptics.com and follow us at SkepSkepPod on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Now here is a promo from a fellow true crime or spooky podcast that we really enjoy. Hope you'll take a listen.
Canada may be known as the friendliest country in the world, but make no mistake, it has some of the most shocking criminal cases too. Canadian True Crime takes a deep dive into some of Canada's most well-known crime stories, as well as others you probably haven't heard of, one case at a time. If you like straightforward, fact-based crime stories and don't mind them being told by an Australian living in Canada, you can find me on your favourite podcast app just by searching for Canadian True Crime.
A horrible murder is committed. The killer calmly... No. Great start. I'll start that sentence again.
List, like L-I-S-T?
Yep. I nodded, but then I was like, no one can hear that.
I heard you. I felt it. That's cute. We haven't done that before.
Yeah, we don't usually do. We should.
I like it.
Good luck on that,
Sit
right?
on your hands.
I can't drink then. All right.
Put a straw in it. It's fine.
Yeah, exactly.
In November of 1950, the Korean War Nope, I missed a word here. Be the director of accountant... No, god damn it. These are not well-written sentences. Sorry, guys.
No worries. Rewrites.
Remix.
I'm going to have to
I was waiting for that.
I'll have to resend this file to you. It's just poor sentence structure.
The horror.
I can't have it.
You should see mine.
A massive manhunt was launched. It was lunched.
Pizza.
Don't drink it. You don't like this one, or you shouldn't have alcohol?
I don't like never had this one, by the way.
Shut the front door. Boom. Fucking outies.
Are you sure I've never had one that you didn't have?
I don't think so.
The thing is, if I go somewhere...
Just go ahead.
It's like if I go away somewhere, it's like Mexico or something, and you don't want that.
In the UK, Finchampstation, Berkshire, Finchampstead.
In the UK.
I think I'm having a stroke. Finchampstation.
Let me see.
Nom nom.
How do I introduce this one? And why did I pick this beer? I have to say something better than, well, there was a woman on it, and she broke dreams, her children's dreams of growing up into full adulthoodness. I mean, like, I tell someone, like, you should sit on a knife. Like, I'd say stupid shit like that, right? But, like, I wouldn't actually rig a fucking chair with it. I don't know. You know what I mean?
What are we talking about?
I don't know. Nina's getting weird. Let's do this. Do you know anything about Andrea Yates? So... It's me. Okay. So, I don't know.
So buttons, bitch.
So buttons.
It's from Dead Like Me.
Is it really? I don't remember that part. Press the read more. Whoops.
She presses the read more.
Yes.
So mysterious.
Fucking website.
Killing it.
Just a sec. Let me just push it up here. I thought, when I looked at this, I'm like, okay, that's going to be everything.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
And then it's like, press to read more, and it scrolls down further. I'm like, what the fuck?
She suffered from bulimia. She suffered from
bulimia.
Bulimia. Like Bellini, but not. She
suffered not like that.
I'm going to make it through this, guys. Okay. So she suffered from bulimia. How do you say it? Bulimia.
Yes.
Rusty is the nickname and kind of the name that he goes to by. Yates. 2 months sojourn.
Rusty Yates, huh?
Okay, I'm going to start that sentence again.
Remix.
In July 1999, Yates suffered a nervous breakdown, which resulted in 2 more suicide attempts and 2 psychiatric hospitalizations.
Her fuck.
That's the problem, isn't it?
Yeah, it definitely is.
Although excuse me. First responders. Some might say.
Sing it.
Sorry.
Destiny's Child.
Just set up a microphone on the floor so you can lie there.
I mean, it's portable.
I've got small...
is it that you're still not feeling well, or you're just, like, real full now?
Oh, I'm just killing it right now.
Just like your mate.
That was a very audible throat growl.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. Okay.
You look more like a T-Rex there.
And I'm trying to help you get good vibes. Full sentences. Punctuation, maybe.
Those are the good vibe arms.
Ma'am, this is healed up here. This tattoo's the old one.
This tattoo is the old one.
This tattoo.
So my hump.
My humps.
My humps.
Okay, Fergie.
Tuba would finally give Muhammad what he wanted all the time. Oh. Tuba would give him... I can speak. It's okay. 1 sec.
Bless you.
Good timing.
I fucking held it in until your sentence was over. Sorry.
That's what she said.
No worries. That's what she said. This company would expand past just a launch... Woo.
As of 2017, women are allowed to drive in Afghanistan.
Jesus, 2017. What?
I'm sorry, because we're all Canadian, so it sounds funny to specify Quebec, a province in Canada. But I'm sure for anyone listening outside of the country,
we have more listeners in the U.S. than we do in Canada.
I know. It just sounds funny to me.
Mm-hmm.
It's like saying North Carolina, a state in the United States.
Yeah.
You know.
I think more people know about North Carolina outside of the United States than they would about Quebec.
Which is also a city in Canada.
Yes, it is.
I can't remember what province it's in, so I'm like, I'll go with a city in Canada.
Yeah. Quebec. They only put Tuba's name on the immigration application. So when the rest of the family was off to Canada to start their new life, Rona was sent to Europe to live with...
To live with...
Excuse me.
That's a good one. It's deep.
Yours sound like the word burp.
Yeah, no doubt. Little baritone.
Yeah, they do.
Mm-hmm. Burp.
Tuba stormed into the...
No kissy kissy.
Child Ford was... Child Ford?
Tom Ford.
Yeah. She said her husband would
Humiliate.
Yes, humiliate. These meetings would drive Zainab to finally remove herself from the issue as she would run away from home. What was that? Loud swallow.
Mm-hmm. Sorry. My orange juice.
Each child interviewed talked of the BBU.
Joob joob joob.
Just
Jooby 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 joobs.
they talked about the jujubes.
The jooby
Jujubes
joobs.
are amazing, especially when you're a kid.
Still.
Sour ones. Oh my god.
Muhammad's reaction was the following, again from McLean's article. According to Yates Shafia... No, sorry. The articles kept on calling Muhammad by just his last name and then everyone else by their first name.
Oh yeah,
So
confusing.
Yeah.
And I was pulling these as quotes straight out.
Nina's having some toots.
It's the chair toots.
Hamid went head over...
Wow.
Parks Canada had already alerted police to a sunken car in the locks that they had spotted by... Wow. Parks Canada had...
I'm sorry.
No worries. It was very... very... Canadians